Welcome to Season 2 of the Spotlight series, Don't Just Survive, Thrive. Most of us have experienced challenging times in our lives, particularly over the last few months of 2020. The key is how we choose to respond, whether we merely survive or thrive. My name is Nicholas Steele, founder of JJP Talent Solutions, an Australian IT recruitment company. With over 20 years' expertise, I provide insights on how you can transform your career to the next level. The focus of Season 2 is around reinvention and how we can thrive in the new normal. In this podcast, I speak to experts from a variety of professions, including HR, technology, marketing, and business coaching. I don't have all the answers. However, collectively, we can instill hope, clarity, and inspiration. I hope you enjoy listening. I'm delighted to introduce Nerida Trappett and Tanya Williams. Nerida is Director of Rivers Insurance Brokers, and Tanya is a digital marketing specialist and Chief of Everything at Digital Conversations. Today, we are discussing how Tanya has helped pivot and reinvent Rivers' marketing campaign over the last few months. Nerida and Tanya, thank you for joining me on Season 2, Episode 7 of the Spotlight series, Don't Just Survive, Thrive. Nerida, Tanya, please could you tell me a little bit more about you and your backgrounds and what you do?
It's Nerida here. I have traditionally been in larger organisations. So I worked for Credit Union Australia for 16 years, then went to the RNA where the ECHA was for 3 years. But for the last 5.5 years, I've worked in the family business, so a smaller business, which has been really liberating. Background is more finance, I guess. So I work on the operational side, looking after IT, finance, and all the administration type stuff. Not the sales area, just that back office type area.
Awesome. Fabulous. And Tanya, tell me a bit more about you and your background.
Hey, Nicola. Look, I've been in the marketing space for, 20 plus years. I shouldn't say that because I feel old every time I say that. Probably been in the digital space for about 15 years now. So I really work with clients to sort of help take the stress and the frustration away from their marketing so they can sort of focus on what they do best and what they want to love. So I work with a lot of boutique-sized companies and, small to medium-sized businesses that just don't have the time to do their marketing themselves and need someone to sort of manage that, put their foundations in place and so forth. So my background is in marketing. I was in traditional marketing, then moved into sales roles. I've worked in media. I've worked with publishers. So I've sort of done the whole sort of gamut and background when it comes to digital and technology and just love what I do every day.
That's great. And yeah, I know I've got over 20 years experience as well. And it's kind of a badge of honour and also an admission of your birth certificate as well.
We just started very young.
Yes,
very young.
Absolutely. Child prodigies. Yes. So Nerida, can you tell me a bit more about what work Tanya was doing for you for Rivers before COVID-19 hit?
Yeah, so I guess Rivers had a strategy and still has a strategy to double its size in 5 years. So part of that evolution, we had merged with a few other brokerages. We'd grown our business bigger, but we didn't have anyone focused just on marketing. When we started that strategy, Rivers was very much internally focused. Looking at our feet a little bit more, not looking ahead. So didn't have that kind of forward strategy in place because it was getting its growth just organically. We were getting a lot of referrals, which we still do. But to achieve a BHAG, like a doubling your size, you need to go further afield than that. You can't just rely on that. And I guess we were upping our professionalism as well in the same regard as we were getting bigger. but we weren't big enough to have someone dedicated just to our marketing, and we didn't have our expertise in-house for that. So you tended to get focused on other things, and that's where we approached Tanya about doing a digital strategy for us, which was fantastic because it didn't just look at one particular area but overall, so that you could get a real plan for how to implement and get some traction in that area. So Tanya worked with us for a few months and then left us alone to put that strategy in place. And I've got to say, I lost focus on it. Other things got in the way. So that's why we were engaged with Tanya again to get that up and running. And she's been fantastic. She's the little person that says, hey, we said we were going to do this. We said we were going to do this, and I need that, and keeps the whole the whole lot going. She's just been brilliant in that respect.
That's fantastic. And thank you for your honesty that you kind of didn't get round to doing it, which I know we've all got those to-do lists. So Tanya, you put all these great strategies in place and then COVID hit Australia. Mm-hmm. So based on your previous strategy, why did you decide to pivot River's original marketing strategy that you had planned?
Well, I think, everything you do in marketing always has to start with the client or the customer. And I know from the conversations that I had with Nerida that they were getting all these different questions come up that were COVID related, and just different conversations were happening. So, when these sorts of unexpected circumstances happen, it's really important to review what you've got in place and go, does this still fit or work for what we're actually trying to achieve? And it just didn't. We needed to go and look at a few things that we had in that were pretty much ready to roll out. Let's just pause those for a while. Let's move it back and then look at those in a few months' time and see if they're still relevant. So it was really about listening to the conversations and the issues that the guys were having and the questions that they were getting asked from their clients. So then we could look at how we needed to pivot. So what we basically did was look at what the types of information was that they needed from Rivers, and it was really centred on the types of issues that they were having at that particular time. So it made sense for us to focus the content and the marketing pieces to what the clients actually needed, so it could be really practical for them. So the first thing we did was like, okay, what do they actually need? And a lot of that was around giving them information that was sort of relevant to them. And then what we also looked at was how can we put the emphasis back on our clients? And one of the things we did to do that was create these things called client spotlights, where we could actually just put emphasis back on them and give them the help and support that they needed. So it was looking at what we had in place, what was relevant for now, what needed to be stopped, what needed to be sort of paused, and we could look at it again sort of down the track. And I think from a marketing perspective, we should always be doing that. We need to be listening to the conversations that are happening around us and the conversations that are happening with our customers, because that will then help us guide the actual marketing content and what needs to happen to make sure it's highly relevant for them.
Absolutely. And I think as well with that COVID situation, particularly March, April, May, it was changing so quickly.
Yeah, every day. There was something new happening every day, wasn't there? So it was
almost,
yeah,
almost every hour. It was incredible how quickly that moved. And with marketing, sometimes it can be done the wrong way. It's not just inappropriate, but could have potentially a negative impact. Can you expand a little bit more on that?
Look, I think that's the thing. You need to be really mindful of your customer's current situation. Otherwise, obviously, you can come across in a very negative way that can result in obviously people unfollowing your brand or even stopping doing business with you. So it's about, I suppose, having your ear to the ground to a certain degree and being mindful of what was happening. Particularly in this sort of circumstance, because there was so much happening so quickly. As you said, like every hour there was a new update or something that had changed that we needed to respond to. So, and this goes from, for any time of the year as well, you've got to really be mindful of what's happening at the current time. And I think if you don't do that, you can really cause a lot of damage to your personal and your business brand by just by ignoring what's going on in your clients' lives, because if it's relevant to them, it should be relevant to you. So it's really important to sit back and take notice around that.
Definitely. And so many people were affected differently as well. And appearing to be smug or and alienating people.
Yeah, very, very true.
And Nerida, the new marketing strategy that Tanya put together, very much centred on River's core values. So tell me a bit more about the core values and why you consider them so intrinsic to River's.
We spend a lot of time putting together our values a couple of years ago, and we believe that our values are not just for our clients, but they're also for our staff members as well. So, I don't treat people differently inside and outside. And we're also not a company that has a vision statement that you see in some of the big corporates that will be the world leading risk manager that goes on for sentences and sentences. That's not us. We're very down to earth. So I guess the marketing that we were doing centered around our statement of our purpose is to ensure you never feel alone. So as I said, that's for our staff members when they're doing their job day to day, as well as our clients on the outside. They should never feel alone. Underneath that, the values that we came up with, we did a workshop with our staff that were with us at the time, and we had Post-it notes flying everywhere, and we came down to a critical 5, which are that we're passionate, but by passionate we mean we jump in boots and all. So we don't do a half-hearted effort with something. We really embrace what we're doing. That we're approachable, so we always have the time for each other. That we've got each other's backs, and that we are diverse. So diverse in our thinking, that we appreciate other people's point of view. We don't necessarily always agree, but we can agree to disagree, but people should have a voice to express what they think, and that we're responsible for what we say and do as well. So if we say we're going to do something, we follow through with it. So I guess when it came to insurance, all of those things during COVID, it sort of made us go a little bit further than just being just on insurance. There were other things we could do for our clients within our own client community to help each other out.
Absolutely. And that centerpiece that you're not alone would have been so relevant when we were all in ISO and what have you.
Absolutely. And I think that these things moved so quickly during that time, and the way people needed to interact with our brokers and our staff, everything changed so quickly that you really needed to look at the individual person and make sure that you were looking after them. So yeah, it was, a lot of people did feel quite isolated.
Yeah, and dealing with them with kindness and compassion. And if there's something good that came of it, was people did seem to be more, and organisations be more compassionate.
Yes,
so Tanya, with all this in mind, and you'd done all your previous strategy, but you now had your new strategy. What was the new strategy that you created for Rivers?
Look, I think, as Nerida said, we really focus a lot on the core values because that is something that is intrinsically part of Rivers Insurance and the company and the team and how they do business. So that was sort of always there. It probably took more of an underlying role in the marketing piece, whereas what we did was really bring that to the forefront and say, this tagline of "you are not alone" really was something that is very authentic. I think it comes across that way for sure, but it allowed us to just really showcase those core values that they live and breathe every day, because as Nerida said, like, some people just have these words on a wall and they don't actually mean anything. So the fact that we could go to the clients and say, hey, you are not alone, and how can we support you, really sort of help sort of, showcase that. So what, as I said, like, clients really became centerpiece to that. So we knew that the clients had other priorities in their day. So they were just struggling to keep doors open. They were moving staff into, remote work. They probably had kids homeschooling. So they had a lot that they were dealing with. So we thought that, it was better to create content and share relevant information that helped them do that. So we had, a couple of people do guest blogs that were relevant to those things for us. So then it was the content that we were sharing was highly relevant, but we also wanted to put the focus back on the client and showcase their business, because we knew from the conversations that the team were having with the clients that, look, some of them were really struggling. So we thought, well, how can we highlight them? So we did a series of client spotlights as well, so we could, help those that sort of really needed help, give them additional exposure. to hopefully new markets and new people that hadn't heard of them, but really show them that they weren't alone and that we were supporting them. So again, it came back to that core value, and it just made sort of total sense. And then we also put together some, specific COVID-related content. So, we put together a guide that was around, talking about, how your insurance is impacted by remote teams working at home and cybersecurity and these sorts of things that probably a lot of people hadn't thought about. So again, the content was relevant to what was happening. It wasn't something we had planned to do prior to, but given what was happening, the conversations were happening, it just made sense to give them something that they could take that would literally practically help them day to day. So again, the focus went straight back onto the clients, and I think that was a really important pivot.
Definitely. And that kind of sharing aspect as well, which is one of the reasons why I decided to do this podcast, was to help people. And you guys became involved, which is fantastic as well. So Nerida, in terms of the new strategy, what was the outcome?
I think there's been a few surprising outcomes out of it. I think that we have a lot more of a connection with our clients because of it, because you're talking to them more than just about their insurance. We didn't assume along this journey what people wanted. We actually sent a survey out to our clients asking them what they wanted, and off that we got a lot of engagement and some surprising results so that we could then tailor what Tanya was putting together. So I think that helped build a stronger relationship, that we're not just here farming out information, we are actually here to listen, which builds really strong bonds with your clients, particularly at the moment. I think people are really looking for that local, someone that's there for them at the end of the phone. And that was one way to prove to our clients we were there for them. So we've built sort of a little community, I guess, for our clients to interact with. But also internally, since we did our values, and we do have, or we had, I think we still have, but the BHAG of doubling our size, some of our newer staff sort of were a little bit stuck on that and didn't understand why we had that. And what this demonstrated to them was we weren't just here to make money, we were here to look after our clients as well. So our newer staff demonstrated that we would actually go to clients, ask them questions about themselves, their favourite quote, what 3 people they'd invite to dinner were in the blogs as well. So you're really humanising it, and that it's not just all about making money. That's not what the company's here for. We're here for a much longer term strategy and helping our community as well.
That's fantastic. That's really, really good. So Tanya, what advice would you give with regards to companies reinventing their marketing strategies for the next 6 months of 2020?
Yeah, look, I think it's really important to review the strategy that they've got in place. So what does the next 3 to 6 months need to look like now? Because, we've been through this panic phase and we've now moved into more of a survival phase, and the next step's going to be on recovery. So, what we had in place for the beginning of 2020 and where we are now, probably 2 very different places. So we need to, take that into consideration. So they need to be looking at, okay, as we move through survival into recovery, what does that need to look like? We need to consider, what content and what information we can reinstate, what's going to be relevant and when it's going to be relevant, what type of campaigns can we be planning in the next few months, because we still want to be seen as obviously empathetic and authentic and still looking at what the current issues are, and those issues are going to continue to change as well. But I think as we're coming out of it, even now, like as of today, we're seeing businesses putting a more business message across and saying, hey, it's okay to get back to doing business. So, we're seeing that start to change. So again, the focus still needs to remain on the client or the end user at the end of the day. But I think it's really important that people look at, okay, what do we need to change as part of our strategy for the next 6 months? Because we know we are going to be in a different place. And have a plan in place moving forward for those unexpected situations as well. I think the ability to pivot quickly and listen to your audience and react fast are really important. And that's exactly what we've done in this situation. Like, it was like, let's have a conversation. What do we need to do? What do we need to change? And we literally changed it overnight. So I think companies need to be really mindful of that in being aware of their audience, but going, right, what do we need to change? And if they're small enough, they can do it quickly. I know sometimes bigger companies, they find it harder to make that change fast. but it really is important to be able to listen to your audience and respond to what it is that they need from you from a company perspective, and just be really empathetic and mindful of what you're putting out there as well.
Yeah, and obviously it's much easier if you are smaller to make those pivots.
Yeah.
But I mean, even the Australian government responded quickly to the change was pretty impressive. Nerida, with regards to insurance for the rest of 2010, I can't speak today. For the rest of 2020, what do you think are the main challenges ahead for insurance?
Yeah, I think it's keeping up with where businesses are at, because what we're starting to see is some businesses thrived under COVID because they pivoted so well. Some went into hibernation and some will struggle to come out of hibernation. So I think for the rest of this year, for us, it's really looking at each one and how we can help with deferred payments. Maybe there's some policies we can adjust for people, and really talking to the client about what they actually need. Unfortunately, I think the insurance industry as a whole is very traditional, and they didn't respond as fast. There was one insurer that did, but others that didn't respond as fast as they should have. And we got caught up in a bit of red tape, which as a broker, we were for our clients and trying to push through that very, very early on. So for us, for insurance, I think there's a level of uncertainty still out there. A lot of COVID is not covered by insurance, so that event won't impact us. But you've got to remember, before that we had bushfires and we had hailstorms. So the future is a little uncertain, I think, of where everything will lie down, because things are changing so rapidly and such big events are occurring, not just here, but all around the world. So being aware of what you have covered and what your risk appetite is, how much you can afford maybe to spend before you start an insurance policy, they're the important things. And so deep understanding of what you can and you can't do, and talking to a broker about that, I think, is really important at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And goodness me, the bushfires seem like a decade ago.
There's a really funny video about that, about a future self talking to a past self. So someone from now going back in time to January. And when I even for me, in the insurance industry, when they mentioned the bushfires, it was like, oh gosh, that was this year as well, at the end of last year.
Yes, I think I know the video. It's a youngish woman, isn't it, that's going back and talking to herself and saying buy shares in Zoom and what have you. Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for sharing your insights, Tanya and Nerida. Is there anything else that you'd particularly like to share?
Not that I can think of right at this moment.
I think it's just important just to, remember your situation and change accordingly, because we are going to see, a lot of change still happening over the next few months. So, just think about what your clients need from you and act accordingly. Be
nimble.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, both of you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. If you're looking for career advice, your next career opportunity, or to grow your tech team, then please call me, Nicola Steele, on 0499 773 546, or go to our website, jjptalent.com.au. The Don't Just Survive, Thrive podcast is part of the Spotlight series, which includes the YouTube channel, Spotlight on Software Development. If you want more insights into the software industry, particularly tech startups, then subscribe to the Spotlight on Software Development YouTube channel. Thank you for listening. Until next time.